welcome back to Cindy's Library. This is Cindy, and today I'm going to talk to you about the rest of what I read for the month of July. So, shall we get to it? First of all, I listened to Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. So, very interesting. The good part of this is I'd probably heard of most of these authoresses before that predated Jane Austen, and I even knew that she liked some of them. But there are a few I wasn't familiar with, and even the ones that I were, I learned more new about them. So that was wonderful. The bad tone's a bit too modern for my taste, but still very much a worthwhile read, and I'll probably return to it at some point. And yes, it has meant that my to-be-read pile has grown once again. Then The Unselected Letters of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower, this time volume 7. Whew. Not a whole lot I can say about this without giving spoilers. I can assure you that Emma continues her adventures with all her friends and enemies, shall we say. Yes, Cousin Archibald is as bad as ever. One thing I will say, though, we've always gotten the sense around St. Crispin's, at least, that there is a kind of magic of a sort, at least, that works. Well, seems like there's more going on in Emma's life, and we are left with many, many questions, which I look forward to having answered later. Sorry about that, had to pause for a second. Next, I read Welcome to the, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Hyunam-Dong Bookshop by Hwang Bo-Roum. This is a cozy Asian book. Youngju is a girl, well, I should say woman, who has done everything right. She still gets burned out. So what does she do? She buys a place to have a bookshop. She has no idea how long she'll be able to keep the bookshop open, but as long as it is open, it is there for everyone. We get her story, the story of a young man she hires as her assistant for the cafe part of the bookstore, and various customers, and of course the power of books. I quite enjoyed it. Not sure I can say it's my favorite of these, but I did quite enjoy it, and especially the ending made it worth it. But we aren't done with Jane Austen July, so aside from Jane Austen's Bookshelf, I read Austenland by Shannon, Hale. Now, I have read this before, but considering that it's been at least a decade since I'd read it, I think it is time that I read it again. So, hooray! This is the story of Jane Hayes. She loves all things Austen, and especially Mr. Darcy. And if you have seen the 1995 BBC miniseries, you understand her position. She is, I think, early 30s, working as a designer, I think, at maybe an ad agency. Anyway, she has a career. What she wants is wants is a relationship, especially with Mr. Darcy. And her great aunt, who she visits at the very beginning, uncovers all of this. Jane really does try to present a responsible facade to the world, and it's not that she's completely irresponsible, not the traditional way at least, but she has dreams, mostly involving Mr. Darcy. And so to help her with this, her great aunt leaves her with a trip to Austenland. Austenland is this amusement park doesn't seem quite the right word, given that there is a manor and an estate with gardens and grounds. And you basically mostly live like you're living in Jane Austen's time. And so, in some ways, slightly doubtful, but feeling she needs to kick the Mr. Darcy habit, Jane goes. And what happens? Oh, very romantic comedy. Yep, very fun. Glad I revisited this. Although I will say, this doesn't entirely, well, it kind of has chapters, but basically what they are prefaced by is Jane's notes on each of the boyfriends. Some of them are amusing, but as they accumulate and start to weigh on you, it starts to give a very different tone from the rest of the book. Kind of gives you an idea of the place Jane is really coming from. Anyway, a light read, but worth it for Austen fans, I would say. So I've got a nonfiction about Jane Austen. I've got my fiction based on Jane Austen or her time period. And read the group read, Emma, lovely as always. Oh, Emma, what can I say about you? Although I must admit, this is probably the most enjoyable time of me reading this so far, and I've read this probably 5 or 6 times. So maybe she's growing on me. Maybe it's because I spent most of my time laughing at Emma, as I feel Jane Austen often is in this book. And I will say, for all of Emma's faults, she honestly, well, she does have a true good side, the way she takes care of and looks after her father, and I do appreciate it. And I do think she is not on the same level as Frank Churchill. And so, just for that, and because she needs the balance of a Mr. Knightley just as much as Frank Churchill needs the balance of a Jane Fairfax, the ending fits, I think. And then I read The Lives of Christopher Chant, the second book in this first volume of the Chronicles of Crestomancy. So, in this time, we read The Lives of Christopher Chant. Let's see, 3 of the Crestomancy books, it's a bit hard to say exactly when they take place. Although it's pretty clear Crestomancy is the same in those. Namely, Christopher Chant. The other 3 definitely feature Christopher Chant, and it is very fun. This one, we start with him from a little boy who somehow goes around his bed in the nursery and ends up in the place between, and from there he can go to all the anywheres. And his uncle finds out about this and asks Christopher to do lots of experiments for him. The only thing is Christopher keeps losing lives at an alarming rate, and eventually this, of course, attracts the attention of the, at the time, current Crestomancy, and things go on from there. This is a very interesting book. We see this basically from Christopher's perspective, and so at the very beginning we see things from one perspective, but by the end things are rather flipped on their heads for the better. So, and I think that is what I read for the second half of July, and the rest of what I read for Jane Austen July. Afraid I didn't watch anything. I was afraid that might happen, but that's okay. Reading is fun enough as it is. So there we go. How was your July? Did you participate in Jane Austen July? I'd love to hear all about it if you did. Thank you so much for stopping here. I truly do appreciate it. So until next time, I hope we all stay safe and healthy. And as always, happy reading.